What highly illegal thing took place at your high school? Two students planned and carried out a coordinated attack on one of the math teachers by waiting by the top of the stairs between periods. And when he passed by them to go down the steps, one of them pushed him from behind while the other put his leg out to trip him. The teacher fell down the steps and broke his neck and back and was paralyzed from the neck down. The kid's reasoning: because one of them was dropped from the basketball team because he was failing the teacher's math class. Both of them were 15 years old. So they didn't get jail time, they both got expelled and were sent to juvenile detention. The teacher sued the school district and got a settlement in the lower 7-digit range. Our football coach took off with one of the girls in the high school and moved to Mexico and married her. He had a wife and kids. They then hired a brand new football coach who was 23 years old. Before the end of his first year, he was hooking up with an 18-year-old senior girl. They also took off and went somewhere. We went without a coach for a couple years. I interviewed to teach at a high school once. One of the questions from the school board was, can you avoid sleeping with your students? Me: yes. Yes, I can. School board thinks I'm great. Principal thinks I'm great. Superintendent of schools doesn't think I'm cut out for the job. Gives me the runaround. Principal is trying to help me push through it and get hired, but I finally give up and get a normal job elsewhere. Superintendent hires his nephew. Wonder why he gave me the runaround? Who promptly has sex with a student and gets fired. I still see the principal occasionally. He always apologizes. I wanted to hire you. He's way too nice to have been stuck at that lousy school. The principal was ducking students. A few years after I graduated, some parents found out and took him to court. He hanged himself before he could be convicted. Over spring break one year, the entire hockey team and the cheerleaders all went to rehab. The goalie was dealing coke to all of them. My teacher was molesting my 14-year-old classmate for a while. He went to jail and is still there 20 years later because another past victim came forward. So that's pretty illegal. Had a guy selling heroin. After that there was a weekly police presence. Also, a kid bound a girl to a chair, gagged her and stuffed her in a cupboard in the woodworking shop. He claims it was to help her complete the sponsored silence she had been doing that day. There were 4 freshmen in the bathroom stall just vaping, and a teacher came in, so they freaked out and didn't want to get in trouble, so they thought calling the cops on the teacher for harassment would get them out of trouble. They got expelled an hour after the cops arrived. We had a science teacher say, if you don't put goggles on, I'm going to have to spray you in the eyes with Lysol, which was probably not illegal until the student tried to call her bluff. She wasn't bluffing. The cheerleaders got caught selling morphine. The football team got into a brawl with a rival school at a local pizza place over said morphine scandal. A huge fiasco over a kid putting baking soda and vinegar in a test tube and sealing it and taping it under a lunch table till it exploded. The principal hired a bunch of students to sell steroids at the local gym. Same principal gave the same students a list of kids who were questioning their sexuality with a counselor, before GSAs were a thing, and they all had their lockers bashed in with a baseball bat. One of the kids had his parents notified and was beat within an inch of his life. Our teacher used to hotbox her classroom and then used the kill fan to pull all the smoke out. A teacher sexually harassed like 12 students. The issue is everybody loved that guy. He won Best Teacher award like 2 days before his arrest. P.S. No, this isn't Persona 5. This actually did happen. I'm not making a clever joke about Kamoshida, although I probably would have. This was a real guy. 1Mr. Chew. Football team had an incident where somehow a Gatorade bottle ended up going up a freshman's butt. Not highly illegal, but not legal either. I figured out how to make fake IDs in my home darkroom and showed a friend how to do it. This was in the early 70s. Before Photoshop. When analog darkrooms and chemical-based photography were the only option, he went into production in a school darkroom. His quality sucked. He got caught. My quality was excellent, but I only made one for me. Pre-internet days, kinda. CDs were a thing. I had a massive CD collection in a gigantic book in my locker. I typed up lists of all the artists and albums I owned. So I had these flyers everywhere, and for $3 a CD I'd burn you a copy. This was right when CD burners came out, and my stepdad was super into the latest and greatest tech, so we had the cool gadgets when they came out. I eventually was caught, but for a time I made killer money. A teacher and an administrator embezzled millions. I didn't even know all this happened until years after graduation. Some of my friends had the teacher in question. My senior year, one of my friends was murdered by her boyfriend, and he drove around with her body in a trunk for a couple of hours. Also, a couple of kids got caught giving each other piercings in the stairwells. Little bit of backstory first. Our school had a big renovation ongoing. And because of that, almost half of the school was closed down. The closed part included the biggest bathrooms, and because of that, the school administration ordered 2 toilet barracks to be placed on the schoolyard. So, some 7-9th graders decided to buy some toilet pipe opener liquid, I don't know what is the correct term, and aluminium foil. They put the aluminium foil inside some plastic bottles and poured a little pipe opener in them with the foil. As someone has probably done this before, knows what is going to happen next. They stuck 6 bottles total inside the toilet bowls in every stall of one barrack and blew them up due to the chemical reaction between the foil and the opener. All the pipings of the single barrack were destroyed due to water pressure inside the pipes. Turns out that the 2 barracks had connected pipings, and the water that was in the bowls in the other barrack shot up to the ceiling due to pressure. The students never got caught, and if I remember correctly, the incident ended up costing a hefty amount for the school administration. The barracks were taken away and were replaced with new ones. After the incident, every recess there was a teacher in front on the barracks monitoring everyone going in and out. Nothing happened to the new toilets. Spanish teacher got arrested for illegally bringing over a 14-year-old Argentinian girl and keeping her as a sex toy. But since she was here illegally and wouldn't testify against him, she was deported, and he came back to school later in the year. Come to find out, a couple of years later, he had molested like half of the girls' volleyball team he was the coach of. Probably the pedophilic cult masked as an NA/AA group that met in the basement somewhat regularly. A terrorist bomb exploded just in front of our school when I was in middle school. We were studying when it happened. There was a big smoke. Glasses were shattered. Everybody rushed outside as soon as they heard the explosion. I just stood dumbstruck in my seat for a full 10 seconds before being able to move. Years later, this is still the most overwhelming experience in my life. Grew up in a small town. When a lamb got sick and was dying, our AG teacher just had us go out behind the classroom building and shoot it. We ended up pulling a massive tapeworm out of it. Definitely not legal to have guns on campus, let alone use them. Dr. guy bashed another guy's skull in Overdugs one afternoon a while after school was over. A couple kids started a drug deal. The basher, Goliath, he lived up to that name too. Absolute unit, was a renowned druggie who did every drug known to man and 7 only known to dolphins. And the Bashi, whom I'll call Carl, tried to sell Goliath some heroin strong enough to kill a baby elephant. Goliath proceeds to take some and test it out on the spot. But proceeds to notice that it is a bit weaker than promised, and was basically no stronger than water. Goliath, a bit angry he was undersold, grabs Carl and smashes his head into T's nearest brick wall, repeatedly, until parts of Carl's brain splatter over the wall. Goliath snaps back to reality, realizing what he just did, and duck and runs like a madman, as anyone in that situation would. He was caught, however, and given a long sentence. Not sure if he is still out there alive or if he got his head bashed by a bigger Goliath. Note: I was not there to witness it in action, so take this with a grain of salt or 12. A lot of it is what I heard. However, I did see the brains on the wall with my own eyes. And Carl's quick, most definitely not open casket funeral.